Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about Chapter 11, Procedures on the Ear. And this content on PCS starts on slide 26. Okay, and again, these are procedures related to the ear and the mastoid process. So these procedures will always start with characters 0 and 9 instead of 0 and 8, right? So that's two of the seven characters down. Now we look at the root operations, and there's such things as alteration, destruction, excision, extirpation, extraction, release, removal, repair, and so on. And just like the previous chapters, Table 10.1, you may want to review Table 11.1. And some common ones that you will see are drainage for the laryngotomy tubes, excision or resection, and then, of course, repair, replacement, reposition, or inspection. Now we're looking at body part. And of course, this is all the body parts of the ear, the external auditory canal, the tympanic membrane, and so on. You may want to review the table in table 11.2 for this. And then, of course, remember laterality because we have both a left and a right ear. And again, we get into a little bit more detail about the nasal turbine, nasal sinus, and ethmoid sinus, frontal sinus, and so on. Now we get into the approach. And again, the approach is mentioned in 11.3, but like previous chapters, it's how we get to the surgical site. With an open approach, we're cutting through the skin to get to the site of surgery. With an external site, the skin is the site of surgery. So, anyway, I hope that helps. So, we've done character 5. Now we're going to go on to character 6. Character 6 identifies if a device remains in the patient's body after the procedure has finished. And we have more devices here. We could have a drainage device, we could have a radioactive element, we could have a hearing device, bone conduction, all different types of devices here. And then finally, character 7. Character 7 is the qualifier. This gives us additional attributes of a procedure, like whether it is frontal bone, ethmoid bone, sphenoid bone, and what have you, right? So that's the purpose of the qualifiers. Some procedures that are in these tables. Now, again, remember 090 through 09X, these are the first three characters of the procedure, first three of the seven. So these include such things as rhinoplasty, otoplasty, septoplasty, and so on. So what I would recommend is look at these terms in the alpha. If you don't see them, think about what the purpose of plasty, typically it's a repair, could be an alteration, what have you, but think about what the purpose of the procedure is. And that's all I have for you. Thank you for watching. Please reach out if you have any questions about this material. Thank you. Bye now.